We found out about the surveillance in 2016, and it was when Minister Mariusz Kamiński gave a speech in the Polish Sejm, the lower chamber of the Polish parliament, and he talked about the surveillance measures during the previous government, the Civic Platform government, and amongst other things he said that there had been 52 journalists under surveillance, and the nature of the surveillance was different, various. It was like billings, like numbers they called, so various levels of surveillance. And my name was on that list too. Minister Kamiński in 2016 said that there were 19 charges brought to the prosecutor's office, and as far as I know, none of those charges had any effect. So this case is, in my opinion, in my eyes, this case is dead right now. Although, of course, I can say that I would really like to know about myself being surveyed by the special services during the Civic Platform rule, but what can I do? I mean, this case had no impact on my personal life. And to be honest, I really do not know what the reason was for me to be surveyed. I suppose that this was just because I was critical about the government. What type of surveillance it was, I have no idea. And I was working at Fact Daily. This is the biggest, still the biggest newspaper, tabloid newspaper in Poland. I had worked there for 10 years, and that was during that period that I was supposedly surveyed by the special services of the Civic Platform government. Most of those journalists were journalists usually more or less critical of that government, but not necessarily. Like, for example, there was my colleague Bartosz Węglarczyk, who is now the editor-in-chief of the Onet internet portal, one of the biggest three in Poland. And he's of different views than mine. He's rather to the left, he's definitely more liberal, left liberal, and he was surveyed too. So what sense does it make? I'm not sure, I don't know, I would like to know, but I have put that case behind me, and I'm still interested, of course, but I don't think there would be any solution. As far as I know, they didn't have at that time any technology resembling Pegasus. So they were not able, probably, I can't be sure, but I suppose they were not able to hack my phone, for example. But what they were able to do is, of course, to have billings from the mobile operators. So also the knowledge about the numbers that I dialed or that dialed me, time of conversations, how long they lasted, and perhaps that this is just my supposition, I could also have been just listened to. But I'm not sure. I don't know, because as I said, this case is now dead, or has been dead for quite a few years. Nothing has happened with it. So I don't know. Yes, the change of government was in the autumn, after the elections in 2015, in the autumn, and in 2016, in May, there was that speech by Mr. Kamiński in the parliament, who was the minister coordinator of special services. So he had that knowledge, just being the minister dealing with those things, with those issues. And he spoke about various areas of surveillance. This was not only about journalists, to be clear. This was about special services surveying various opposition activities, like public gatherings, for example, but also journalists. And I think that case of journalists being surveyed was the most famous and made the biggest fuss then, because being a journalist is a special thing. We have here in Poland we have a journalistic secrecy guaranteed by the law. So every intervention into that area is considered to be really crossing some kind of frontier by the state. So this is, I think, why it was so such a famous case. As far as hard data is concerned, I mean hard facts, this is the only current case known to me. Although, of course, there are people who guess or suppose they might be under surveillance, but they have no hard proof of that. So these are only suppositions, not hard facts. So if we speak about hard facts, this is the only case. I would say that the impact of that case was minimal, unfortunately, because I've been dealing with the issues of privacy, secrecy, and also surveillance, and the scope of competences of secret services. I've been dealing with that for a couple of years, and I can see that what this government has done is in fact broadening the competences of special services.
The current government.
The current government. They gave new possibilities to conduct surveillance to some new special services, like, for example, special service which deals with the protection of the government officials, which is called Służba Ochrony Państwa, State Protection Service, SOP in Polish. Before they had no such possibilities, now they have, since I think 2020, if I remember well. So, in fact, the scope of possible surveillance in Poland has broadened a lot since 2015, in spite of that case about which we found out in 2016. So, if you ask me whether that case had any impact, positive impact, like making people or journalists more cautious about it, or making the government less expansive, if I can say so, in this area, I would say no. Unfortunately, no. And now I can say that the situation associated with the war in Ukraine, of course, adds arguments for the government to even to broaden the scope even more, because they can always say we have a special security situation, we have to conduct surveillance on possible spies or agents of influence, and so on and so on. So you understand, you have to compromise your privacy because we have to provide security for you. This has always been a very good pretext for every government in the world to broaden the scope of possible surveillance and to limit our privacy. As I said, they empowered new special services, and now we have, I think, 9 special services which can conduct surveillance on various levels on the citizens. And there is also a controversy linked to a new project of telecommunication law, which is in the Polish parliament right now. And that law, if it was passed in the form in which it was delivered to the parliament, would allow special services with one press of a key on the keyboard to have knowledge about not only our normal telecommunication activities like phone calls or short messages, but also about our activities on internet communication, like emails, like WhatsApp, like Messenger. What the fate of that law, of that act will be, we still do not know at the moment when we are speaking. There was quite a great fuss about it, and the opposition legislators opposed the law, but what will happen to it and what form it will take eventually, we still do not know. The initial form of that act shows us that the government wants to have or to give to the special services even more powers to conduct surveillance on citizens.
Now Pegasus was hit by the scandals, but that the Polish police at least purchased new software from various Israeli companies.
That's right, but on this point I would not exaggerate, because the nature of that particular application or device is such that they have to physically possess a device to plug it into the computer on which they have the application installed to conduct activities with that device. Of course, one can imagine a situation in which, for example, someone is apprehended by the police. He has to surrender all the things that he has on him, like a phone, for example, and then the phone is plugged into the device. But that's not as simple as using Pegasus. I mean, Pegasus is of course a very expensive service, but it can be directed against individuals remotely, whereas this particular device or application or algorithm cannot. So it's not that dangerous.
Do you think Polish authorities